She's not a pharmacist over here. I mean, she was a housewife. She took care of the child. The mother lived with them at the house, so she was primarily a housewife. She had only come over here in 2014. I'm not really one to be able to.
From a family. From what the family has.
Well, she's only been a mother for about 6 months. So the family just knew her as, she was caring, she was soft-spoken. It's very basic information, what they've seen of her.
She was like a typical housewife.
Yeah. She spoke English and she did speak Urdu as well, but it was broken.
How was she assimilating into the country, into the culture?
Well, for the year that she was here, she was assimilating fine.
She did maintain certain traditions, from what I understand, in terms of fasting and prayer 5 times a day. She chose not to drive voluntarily, but these are all benign. These are things that many Muslims do, and it doesn't mean anything necessarily.
Yeah, we're just trying to get anything new about her from a good source, which is the family.
I think what we're seeing is she was a very, very private person. She kept herself pretty well isolated. She was very conservative, and I think one of the dangers is since everyone does know so little, is that she's easy to pin things to or stigmatize with. She's been the one that the media has done a lot of that too, because there's no picture, and so it's or there's not a lot of information about her. So I think we need to guard against that. But unfortunately, I wish I could answer the question better. There is very little information we have about her, other than the fact that she was a caring housewife. And
one of the things I can tell you guys, I had discussed with the family about the housewife, is that they're very traditional, in the sense where the family would go over to the house. They wouldn't all be together in the room. The women would sit with the women, and the men would sit with the men. But that is a very traditional way of acting. It wasn't anything that was different, so the men did not interact with her. And the brothers did not actually ever see her face. They've never seen her face because she did wear a burqa. So they just knew her. Yeah, she was totally covered. So they just knew her as Sayyid's wife.
Did you speak English?
She did speak broken English, but her main language is Urdu.
Looking back at all this, obviously the explosive devices that took a long time to make those. It took, planning to get whatever they were wearing, vests or whatever they were. Was there a paint picture for us for the family? I mean, are they looking back now and saying, well, when they did, X, Y, and Z, that sort of now that makes sense. Now we realize that's what they were.
No, the family was, to be honest with you, they thought Sayyid's hobbies, and which they still were, was building cars. This was his thing. He liked to go in his garage and he liked to work on things. They never used to invade his personal space. That was his man caves of sort. He used to go into the garage and work on things. He used to build shoe racks for his sister instead of making her buy them. So the family was taken by shock. They're very remorseful, and this is something that took them and just hit them as hard as anybody else.
Did the family ever go in the garage?
The family would just go in there just to see some of the things that he might be working on, like his car. But one of the brothers even explained that he wouldn't really go in there because when he would just go in there, it would just be for play dates. His daughter and his daughter would be playing together, but that would be it.
They never noticed any of the guns or any of the arms.
Well, they were aware of the guns that were at the house, but they were also aware that the guns were locked up in a case.
I mean, when we talk about guns, we're talking about, from what I understand, there was 2 9mm, and then there was 2 rifles. But that was what we know, that was for target shooting before then. But there was definitely never evidence of any of the other things.
Would you characterize the level of Saeed's mechanical ability? I mean, he had this hobby, but
it wasn't something that he had gone and gotten a formal education, but it was something that he had picked up by watching his father, reading books. He read books about, cars, mechanics. It was mostly car books that he was reading, and he was learning as he went along.
You said that he had been made fun of by someone at work, teased about his beard. Is that something he talked about a lot? I know there was a man we interviewed yesterday who had very strong religious beliefs, and his wife talked about that. Did he say, there's a guy at work who's been harassing me?
I think it was just a general conversation that he had with the family when he explained that, somebody just made fun of my beard.
But that's part of the concern, I think, is that we can't lead some intolerance to lead to further intolerance, or in addition, there's times when these things happen in all sects of American culture, where someone is disgruntled or gets made fun of or is uncomfortable or is an antisocial person, and they lash out and they do bizarre things like in Columbine or wherever, in Colorado recently, it's hard to attribute just to the religion of Islam or Muslim people, and all Muslims, like I said, are condemning this act, and we're all praying on behalf of the victims, and we all feel terrible about what happened.
But experts will also say this was a workplace type of shooting. There's always some sort of sign leading up to it. You're saying the family did not see any sign whatsoever,
Well,
save for this beard.
No, the family just knew that he was making fun of the beard. There wasn't anything else. He had just told the family I was somebody made fun of my facial hair. And his job, he had to keep his facial hair kind of trimmed up a little more because of the type of job that he had in the county. So that's why he had told the family about this situation. And mind you, he was a pretty private person. So for him to share some information, that's why the family had conveyed that to us and what actually happened at the workplace.
There's been some conflicting information out there about how the couple met. Do you have any idea about their personal history?
Yeah, the couple met through an online dating website. It was actually a marriage website. They had met. They had interests that, they matched up.
Was it a Muslim website or?
Well, we don't actually know what kind of website. We were actually trying to find out more information about the website with the FBI as well.
Do you
It's
know
still
what year it
ongoing.
was?
It was about 2013.
So then how do you know about this?
The family and us have talked about this, as well as the FBI.
It's the investigation.
Met in person.
Excuse me?
When they met in person, so they met online sometime in 2013.
They probably met in about 2013, and then they ended up getting married closer to the 2014 time period.
Did they meet in person at any time before that, or would that be the first time they?
So he had went out there for a Hajj, and then they went ahead and they met, and then they got married a short time after that.
So that's two separate trips. You went there for the Hajj and then came back the second time. And
That is our understanding.
Did he meet with her personally when he went to the Hajj?
At that time, I think he might have met with the family, is what we understand from the family members themselves.
There have been substantiated reports that the wife could have been radicalized and somehow involved her husband unsubstantiated. But I'm wondering if any of the family members saw anything to suggest that she perhaps was more dominant than a submissive Muslim woman might traditionally be.
She was very
So as you can tell, this is a press conference by the Farook family attorneys. And the problem that they're really getting at this point is, really hardball questions on what this guy and what this lady had done, or their actions, or their people, or who they are as people. And it's characterizing, and there's a lot you can hear in some ways. I know I'm overriding the sound right now. You can hear in some ways that these are somewhat loaded questions. And I think that these attorneys are answering very, concisely, very, very well to these questions because of the fact that, this is really going to show where people's opinions are, where people are in the media.
She went to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to get married with Saeed.
All right, and with that, one more thing, I respect the attorneys in the fact that they're holding the person's privacy in check. I respect the fact that they are speaking out against intolerance, and I respect the fact that they're speaking to the point that this is not a for sure, thing, that this was his fault. Now, this might be a false flag because this came directly after all this tension in the Middle East and after all this tension in Europe, and it just kind of happened out of nowhere. And now the
shooter, and the same thing was the case here. The mother stayed to herself. I think she stayed upstairs, and so she would have been separate and not really known much about what was taking place in the rest of the house. And everyone is always surprised by these incidents, and the same thing is true here. Everyone wasn't shocked. There was a tendency to look for a network, a religious affiliation, an imam, an extremist group, friends, lists of people that went to the wedding, anything that could be there to find some type of terrorist network. And the FBI was doing their job. We're all angry. We all want answers. We all want security. We all want to be protected. But nothing came up, and that is what is so shocking about all this. And I guess I just feel the need to emphasize that so much because we just have a tendency to characterize it in that way. And unfortunately, it was really bizarre to sit through the interviews for 4 hours and not find or see anything. But that's exactly what happened. There was nothing linking this to religion or terrorist-related activity.
And that's the point right
But
there.
they're the FBI, and they're damn good at getting this information. They asked everything they could. They had the mother under pressure for 7 hours or so. They basically took her into custody, and at one point they had the mother in custody, and they said, "We're not letting your mother go." They said this to Syra, the sister of Saeed. "We're not going to let your mother go until you and your brother and your sister Eva come in for questioning." And I get the feeling that was a really traumatic experience because her son had just died, and not to mention she was totally distraught over how that happened and the victims. She's been crying all these past couple days. She hates what happened. She's very mournful over the victims. But I guess what I'm saying is that they're not new to this game. I mean, one of the FBI investigators we sat down with clearly looked like he would be a plant in a mosque. He had a beard. He looked like he just walked right out of Pakistan or Saudi Arabia. And these are very shrewd, smart individuals. And if there was any information there, they would have gotten it or found it. I mean, the entire world is digging for information, and the most we've gotten so far is somebody looked at something on Facebook. So
That's all there's probably.
that's all we got so far.
See, and this is like, there's really no point in continuing to listen to this. But I mean, you can see how anybody watching this, like just from this whole thing, can see that there is a penchant for us to blame a religious affiliation or a terrorist affiliation on these people from the Middle East, where this could have just purely have been, I mean, this guy had been being bullied or whatever at work, and he just had enough of it and he lost it. Or it could have just not even been him. I mean, you have videos, pictures of this guy handcuffed on the ground when he's already dead, and that kind of doesn't really, to me, that doesn't really, that's not copacetic. Why would you handcuff a dead man? I mean, that does not make sense. But anyways, yeah, I just saw this on TV, and I just wanted to, throw this out there and let people know that this is happening. The defense of somebody who's accused of acts like this, whether he's dead or alive, I mean, it should be handled impartially, and I respect the prosecutors. Or not the prosecutors. I respect the defense attorneys for this. All right. Talk to you later.